and welcome to this is the first ever episode of Lorekeepers. I'm Darth Sebius, and I'm joined by Brett Lowski and Corruption Points. You guys know these from previous other Dice Troop shows, and Lorekeepers is going to be a weekly tabletop geeky gaming lore and myth and everything kind of that we want to try and tell you guys, and everything you guys want us to talk about. And we're starting with Forgotten Realms, an intro thereof, and it's going to be quite a survey, quite an overview, looking at Faerûn, the main races, and the main gods in this first edition. So yeah, how are we feeling? I know Corruption Points is feeling a little bit nervous, even though he is our Yoda. Like, how could you be feeling nervous? It's going to be fine.
I guess you're nervous. You're Yoda.
Ayo, in other words. Yeah, puns. Dance and Dungeons & Dragons puns are things that you need to worry about with this show. So I'll just kick us off. Here is the map of Faerûn. It's the kind of main focus of the whole Forgotten Realms D&D setting, and please, Corruption Points, jump in at any point if I say anything horrific.
I'll be sure to correct you in the most obtrusive and obnoxious manner.
Please do. Faerûn is the major continent of the planet of Aber Toril. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, so it's Toril or Aber Toril, which is the combination of the two realms, but we'll get into that later.
Okay, awesome scenes. The majority of the official Forgotten Realms material covers this continent, and it's had more attention than any other area, really. The continent includes terrain that is varied as any other. You've got pretty much every standard fantasy setting, from jungles to ice tundras to grasslands to cities to floating islands to watery, exciting places and places where everyone else lives. Kind of the most dominant feature in the continent is the Sea of Fallen Stars. It's the irregular island sea that keeps the interior lands fertile and serves as a major trade route for many of the bordering nations. You've got the Shah. It's a broad region of grassland in the south, with the Lake of Steam that separates the area and the island from the coastal nations. To the east of Faerûn is bordered by vast regions of the steppe from Karatur, and in the north of massive glaciers, the Helveria and Reged and Tundra. The southern continent separated by the Great Sea and the subtropic land of Sahara, and the continent includes the following huge geographical political regions. The northwest is a big wild wilderness, difficult winter weather, orc hordes and barbarian tribes. You're kind of enjoying this. It's the standard of the north. Every planet has a north, and this is the north, essentially. You got the High Forest, the Icewind Dale, the Mithril Hall, Neverwinter, the Silver Marches, and the confederations of humans, dwarves, elves, and the city of Silvermoon at its heart. You've got the Sword Coast, rich coastal outline of trade, piracy, and adventure. Waterdeep, the City of Splendors, a huge and richly detailed city on the Sword Coast. I just want to throw this back to Corruption Points while we're on the sort of northwest. Is there any of that you want to get into any more particularly?
There's a bunch of stuff. So there's a lot of lands in Forgotten Realms, which is usually the trepidation that people have when they're coming into this setting. And I think there's several areas that I really wanted to highlight, because I think that they sort of encapsulate what Forgotten Realms is, what Faerûn is, you know? And in that, Waterdeep specifically, Waterdeep is one of my favorite places, right? It's sort of like the New York, London, Tokyo combination of the Forgotten Realms universe, right? It's filled with people. It's run by this secret organization of shadowy magisters that no one really knows who they are or what they are. But it's this awesome town, and it's filled with all this trade and all these awesome people. And it's really like the culmination of a melting pot. There's every race can be here, and there's not particularly anyone trying to kick them out at any given time, which is really cool. Waterdeep also has one of the probably greatest dungeons that's possible to delve into within it, or right next to it, I should say, which is the Undermountain, and which is the Undermountain is right next to Mount Waterdeep, which is it's sort of next to the city, and is ruled by this really old evil wizard named Halaster Blackcloak. and he decided that one day he was just going to claim all of the Undermountain for himself, and he started shuffling prisoners and all manner of terrible beings down there. And he really sat down there for like 500 years before he mysteriously went missing. But the Undermountain itself has roughly, way more than 500 years, I'm sorry. But the Undermountain itself has roughly like 15 levels, and they're all just like worse and worse and worse. If you're talking about a dungeon crawl, this is it. You know, like it's this in the Underdark. Like the huge, like you're gonna kill your players. You're gonna like really dive into how bad the universe can get. Here you go. Here's a dungeon that just never ends.
This is something I need to keep secret from my friends.
Yeah, right. It's really cool. And Waterdeep is like the hub, right? If Waterdeep is the good part of it, the Undermountain is the bad part of it, right? Which is really cool. They have this awesome place you can set up all these people and all these different races, and then you have the Undermountain, which is just this giant dungeon that you can spend hours adventuring in. Also, just for funsies, connected to Waterdeep is a place called Skullport, which is sort of like Tijuana for evil beings in Forgotten Realms. It's so there's like pirates and demi-evil beings, not gods. I'm sorry, demigod beings that are sort of like living there, and it's just filled with like debauchery. But it's connected to Waterdeep, so it's much like New York has its various parts. Waterdeep has its parts that are just like terrible, raunchy areas of bad stuff. And it's really one of my favorite places in the setting. I put people there all the time. There's so much to do. There's so much to see. Waterdeep is probably my favorite city in Forgotten Realms. But rambling aside, that's one of the biggest things I wanted to touch on.
Oh, okay. Awesome scenes. And was it the Underdark, and so what was the other dungeon you were saying? Is the eponymous dungeon as for the title?
See, the Undermountain is the one next to Waterdeep. Underdark is creatively named the underneath of Forgotten Realms, where it's dark. The Underdark is more or less where everything evil lives, right? Underdark is not so hell for Forgotten Realms, and it's this like series of tunnels and caves that sort of weave and wind underneath the setting itself. And one of the biggest places there is actually called, I'm going to try and pronounce this right, Menzoberranzan, which is where Drizzt lives. He's or not really lives, but interacts with very, very often in the R.A. Salvatore novels about Drizzt Do'Urden. So it's, again, one of those really big areas that a lot of people know about if they've ever read the Forgotten Realms books. And the Underdark itself is just a series of like tunnels and evil cities and amoral beings. There's Drow everywhere, and it's really cool adventuring site for if you want to get lost in the dungeon. Very much in the Underdark, it's more or less where you send players to die. Either die or never be heard from again. It's a matter of throwing them into this like really big, really awful area and trying to get them to find something or get their way out afterwards. The Underdark is really, really cool.
I'm going for a walk in the Underdark. Maybe sometime.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like the entirety of the underneath of Forgotten Realms. So that's and if you've ever looked at a Forgotten Realms thing, you've probably heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. But I won't get into that because I could spend a whole show talking about that.
Yep. Awesome scene. So I'll move into the north. You've got the north reach stretch, the Anorak Desert in the west, and the eastern fringes and the island of Moonsea. I'll bring up the map so we can see it all there. In the north, the region, the continent, you've also got the region contrast containing the Narok, the huge desert, the Dowlands, the Moonsea, the Ride, and the Vast. And then move on to the northeast. The remote area begins in the cold, forbidding lands along the great ice sheets that continue south toward the northeastern shores of the Sea of Fallen Stars. It's bordered on the west by the mountain-hemmed land of Vasa that stretches east of the vast steppes of the Hordelands. This region also contains the Damara, the Great Dale, Impultar, the Hordelands, Narfell, Rashomon, Thesk, and Vasa. Any of that you want to particularly get into in more detail, or should I just continue my survey of Faerûn as a whole?
Oh, by all means, go ahead. I don't really have anything about any of them. The Hordelands is pretty cool because it's just a giant area where there's orcs everywhere, but that's more or less all that I know. Narfell is also pretty cool, actually, but I don't have anything to say about it immediately.
Awesome.
So, no, actually I do. Yes, okay, I do. Cool. I have this note here. Narfell was it was a kingdom filled with this old evil wizards, and they all decided to summon demons all at the same time.
Good idea.
Yeah, right.
Always just a fantastic route to take.
If you ever want to research into Forgotten Realms, or you wanted to know about bad things that have happened or giant tragic events, just assume that a wizard summoned a giant demon, and you'll most likely be right. 90% of the time, that's a right assumption to make. It happens all the time. But so Narfell is one of the big examples of this. Narfell was an old city that was really well put together. It's filled with a bunch of people, and then they decided. I think one wizard particularly decided that he wanted to summon a giant demon, which made the entire city just kind of fall to the Underdark. It's filled with barbarians now. So it used to be this giant, awesome city, and now it's just filled with awful barbarians in the wintry north. And it's directly beneath Narfell is the Underdark, and it's of course it's one of the worst areas of the Underdark, because why wouldn't it be? And even the Drow don't want to be there. It's just filled with demons and wraiths and eldritch horrors. It's one of the worst places to be, and all of the Underdark, which is kind of silly. But if the Underdark is a nightmare, then this would be the nightmare that you had when you were a kid. You just can't get over.
You've waked up and you've actually pooed yourself.
Yeah. That's all I really have to say about the North, unfortunately. But it's a good signifier for crap that happens in Forgotten Realms. Is someone decided to summon a demon? Now it's filled with the Underdark.
Awesome scenes. But you're making the Underdark and Narfell sound like a kind of exciting places to be. My inner Nathaniel Duquesne is saying there is some good to be done there.
It's a great family vacationing spot for the Mansons.
Awesome scenes. And lawful good fighters trying to get themselves a glorious death, possibly.
Oh yeah, they certainly can find a death.
Awesome scenes. So we can move on to West Faerûn. The region includes the nations such as Waterdeep, as we mentioned before, in the Shining Sea. You got the huge, relatively new human nation, great wealth and prosperity. That's a word. You also got Baldur's Gate, which everyone knows from the Baldur's Gate games and novels. I will hold my hand up and say I actually didn't even realise this was part of the D&D setting when Baldur's Gate came out. I just thought it was a fantasy thing within itself, but that's a shame. You also got the Kalimshan and the Evereska, the crumbling final stronghold of the Elves and Faerûn. The Lantan, the mysterious island nation, as long as the Moonsha Islands and the Nalantha Isles and Nimbrel and Tather. Again, like I said, if you want to stop me at any point if you want to go through things.
Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, of course.
Let's just take a minute to collectively celebrate how amazing this city is, right? Baldur's Gate is so good.
I've heard so much about Baldur's Gate, and I've never known what it was, and now I'm just I get to find out.
So get this crap, right? Baal is a god, and he's about to die because people don't like him. So he goes around in Baldur's Gate and just impregnates a bunch of women, and they all create this thing called Baal spawn, which collectively will form a giant sacrificial cult that'll reinvigorate and create Baal again, right? And it's so cool. It's disgusting and ridiculous, and they've made 7 books and 8 games. It's really one of my favorite places ever, right? So
long-term health insurance plan.
Imagine if you're about to die and you're an important god, right? Your idea is I know what I'll do. I'll just go impregnate a bunch of women in one town, and then eventually I'll come back. It is the stupidest, most ridiculously evil plan I've ever heard. I love it so much.
Charlemagne. Aren't we all related to Charlemagne? He kind of did that same sort of thing, which is kind of epic. But it's kind of like the Joy Division as well in some ways, which is kind of slightly scary. So is Baal good, bad, other?
Oh, he's evil. He
is evil. Oh, so it could be like the Joy Division then.
That's all I have to say. I just really like Baldur's Gate. I really like the games. I really like the books. The whole city makes me happy.
With the books, where would you say the best place to start? Because that's something I want to have a look at as well at some point.
Oh gosh, let me come back to you. Hang on, let me look them up.
Awesome scenes. Well, I'll keep us moving through Faerûn. So the interior of Faerûn, we have with the exception of the Shining Plains, these lands lie within the irregular coastline of the western Sea of Fallen Stars. In the north, you've got Dragonmere. Arm of the sea extends far to the west, ending close to the western heartlands. To the south, you've got the Vidon Reach, forms the second arm leading to the southwest. The notable areas the region include the Chondath, Cormyr, a feudal nation of humans living on former elven and dragon territory. You got the Dragon Coast, which I believe is that there's a fantastic single or double player campaign on the internet about the Dragon Coast, which is really quite fun. There's Hlundeth, the Pirate Isles, Sembia, Sespesh, Termish, and the Shining Plains. Any of those you particularly want to go to, CP? I know you got excited about Baldur's Gate.
No, I'm not nearly excited about this as I am with Baldur's Gate. I'm not gonna lie.
Awesome scenes. So I shall move to the east. Most of the nations in this region border the eastern expanse of the Sea of Fallen Stars. Here the sea forms a long arm that travels east before turning south, becoming the Alamba Sea. The northern nations of the mysterious area are termed the Unapproachable East. Now, they're like post-colonial reading time, and the southern nations of the old empires. The regions include the Alarond, the Altumbul, the Chisenta, the Chonderwood, Mulhorand, Morhom, Thay, the home of the notorious Red Wizards, and Unther. Many of these nations allow slavery and depend on slaves for much of their economy. So, seriously, is this the Orient?
As you might have guessed, right? There are various places that Forgotten Realms sort of mirrors itself on various cultures, but all of them are more or less stereotypical and sometimes offensive. For Karatur is the Asia of Forgotten Realms, right? So it has a lot of Asian mythology, a lot of Asian culture in it, and things like that. Chinese, Japanese, even Korean. And then so you have Maztica is sort of like the South America of Forgotten Realms, and Zakara is the Arabia of Forgotten Realms. So like, imagine if you're creating Forgotten Realms as a setting, and if you're Ed Greenberg and you decide that you want to put various cultures in various places of your world because you want to mirror our world as Earth. So you decide that, like, okay, great, every race gets a town, and that's more or less what he did. Mulhorand and Unther, they're sort of like the Egypt and Mesopotamia area, and all of that sort of just lumped into that eastern section of the world, right? So it's the eastern section of the world, and we have a very eastern look on it, as if it is the eastern hemisphere. So you have all these different cultures that sort of live within that area. And it is really, really cool if you want to delve into that kind of cultures, if you want to play a game in those cultures, if you want to run a samurai kind of game, you know? Especially if, like, I've read, I have never run, unfortunately, but I've read some really great campaigns based around Seven Samurai and Dragonborn, set in those East Asian cultures, and it's really, really cool. But just the way that Forgotten Realms was originally designed, it's kind of offensive. There's like slaves everywhere, and they very much harken back to the very worst aspects of pretty much every culture, including American, European, and Indo-European cultures. So Forgotten Realms is much like the colonial days of every culture going on all at once.
So and if it's doing it to everyone, then it's kind of fair, isn't it?
It's sort of equal in its awfulness. If you can keep in mind that this is the colonial era and you do not have to be evil, you can be the good guy that trying to brings it around, or a good girl that trying to brings it around, then keep that in mind, you know.
Exactly, and the DM can control the area to a certain extent. Like you are inspired by what's going on there, and you can show that as being bad. It's like if the DM says, "Oh, there's a slave and it's awful," and or someone's like, "Oh, they've got slaves," it's fine. Like that makes a big difference on how people take it.
Yes, the DM is very much in control of the scope of how terrible things are.
Yeah,
and it depends on what your player characters particularly want to do.
Awesome scenes. Well, yeah, I just it does intrigue me, but like all these things, it is fantastic. Like it's going to be the most stereotypical, the most extreme, and it's all the feudal times. So like feudal times aren't always fun times, are they? Let's be fair, especially if you're a woman or certain races.
It's very much, I guess, in that sense, realistic portrayal of how terrible things are.
Okay, awesome scenes. I've just got a few more little areas before we move on. So in the southwest, you've got the region lies with the great Cluton. Am I saying that? Cluton Peninsula that juts towards the west. The waters to the north are named the Shining Sea and bounded by the Kalamashan to the north and joined by the Lake of Steam. Through the Straits of Storm to the south, you've got the Great Sea located in the area. You've got Chult, I do my own loving pronouncing some of these words now. La Plea, Samarach, Tashalar, and Thindol. So yeah, I do. If anyone's having some issues with this, I do apologise about my pronunciation. Then moving to the south, you got the lands in the south regions around the South Sea of Fallen Stars, being somewhat isolated by the Lake of Steam in the west, and the vast length of the Shah. It's bordered along the south by the Great Sea, and the west of the Teuton Peninsula region, and in the east with Luiren. The south includes the border kingdoms, and ever-changing mini-nations and fluctuating borders, Dambrath, the Great Rift, Halrua, the Lake of Steam, the Shah. Then the southeast, we've got the land line in the south, the grassy plains of the Shah. You've got along the shore of the Great Sea opposite to Zakara, the Shining Lands, Dupar, Estegund, Val the Golden, Lurin, Ulgarth, Veldorm. And we've already touched on the Underdark a little bit, but it's the immense complex and caverns and passages that lie beneath the many parts of the continent. Faerûn, which contains Ched Nasad, Dunsperin, Glaxter, Lothdraw, Merimdra, Menzo Barazazan, the famous Drow city.
Yeah. Have fun with those.
Yeah. Menzo Baranzan, the famous Drow city, the original home of Drizzt, and Shamath. And it also contains, and even the wiki says, the unpronounceable cities of Quadhau, Illithids, and Beholders. So yeah, good times. That's overall a favourite. I do apologise if I've taught anyone to suck eggs, and also if I've pronounced everything horrifically. But
well, I'd like to talk about Chult for just a second before we move on. Simply
totally.
Because it's a very interesting thing. So as we discussed before, so there's Toril, which is the world that Faerûn sort of exists in, and then there's Eber, which was sort of created when the Primordials split. So the Primordials being dinosaurs, the time before the Land of the Lost. And in one of the giant cataclysmic events of Forgotten Realms, I think it was the Time of Troubles. The Chult sort of Albert and Toril sort of mixed places, right? So it made Chult come into Toril, which is it's more or less island filled with dinosaurs and lost islands. It's really, really cool. Imagine if the Land of the Lost sort of just kind of sucked itself into Forgotten Realms. That's what Chult is, and it's sort of the only way to get there unless you want to plane hop.
Okay. Awesome scenes. Because it's all fused. It was one, now it's two. That whole thing. Yeah. Good. I'm sure we could probably even have a whole episode on that whole Time of Troubles and things.
Oh my goodness, I could talk for days on Time of Troubles, but we won't.
Okay. Oh. So, are we good to move on to races? And thank you, CP, for keeping in one that I nearly left out.
No, yeah, please, by all means, go ahead.
Awesome scene. So we have the Dragonborn and the Dwarves. So Dragonborn, the proud, honourable warriors born from the blood of ancient dragon gods. They're born to fight. They're the Dragonborn, a race of wandering mercenaries, soldiers, and adventurers. Long ago, their empire extended for a worldwide dominion, but now only a few rootless clans of these honourable warriors remain to pass their legends on to ancient glory. So these are dragon people, essentially. Yeah. They're epic. They're obviously not quite the devolved and monstrous kobold. Yeah, I know some other things. I felt good for that. But is there anything particular you fancy getting to about the Dragonborn?
I like them. Unfortunately, I've only played one D&D 4th edition campaign with the Dragonborn in it.
Oh, of course, but I knew.
Yeah, because they are a newer race. They were hinted at throughout time, but I think they only became a playable race in 4th edition. and you could play them in 3.5. You could play them in 3 with a whole bunch of different supplements and things like that. So Dragonborn is sort of this really awesome mercenary samurai culture, you know. So you can either you can have like you can have a culture of Ronin, so it's like a samurai without masters. They're sort of just awful. They're mercenaries. They do what they need to do, and they're big, and they know they're big, so they can go around and just beat people up for money. And then you have the Dragonborn that just all about honor, all about respect, all about that kind of thing, you know. And it's very much an idea of this is the way you are, and this is the way you have to be. And Dragonborn are sort of tended towards lawful good for that reason. And I like them a lot for that reason. But you very much can play them in a bad way, which is the mercenary side of it. I like them a lot. I'm really glad that they came into the game itself. I really like the way that they interact with the world. I like their lore behind them. I like their special abilities. As far as additions to 4th edition went, it's really one of the coolest ones.
Awesome scenes. Yeah, I gotta say that I do quite like the Dragonborn. I toyed with having a Dragonborn character for a while, but I made a Warlord, and Warlord just wasn't for me. I wanted to be a fighter, not a Warlord, and the word war kind of confused me. Because Warlords aren't that warlike, essentially.
Think of a Warlord as like a manly bard, right? Where they sort of... They do all the things that a bard can do, and that they make their party better, and they sort of boost them up, and they give them all these like awesome, inspiring speeches. It's sort of like Psalm of Courage, and at the same time, they can use like spears and swords and shields. Right? It's like be a bard, but you can also use weapons, and that's again one of the worst things about 4th edition is like we can't make bards anymore. They're too like fragile. Let's make people that are bards, but we call them something different, and they yell at you instead. Which is
you're not a fan of Warlords either, then, I imagine.
I like Warlords. I just think they're dumb. All right, if you we're not gonna talk about this. Let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Deep breaths. And I'm also going to apologise for now. I realise that to 3.5 people I've come across as racist, so I would like to apologise. My only experience of kobolds were as enemies, so I didn't realise there could be nice ones. So I'd like to apologise to Reshiko and Literary for that. Yeah, I don't mean to be racist. Yeah, still racist to a certain extent. Anyway, from the dragony people to the dwarven people. So the dwarves, the masters of stone and iron, dauntless and unyielding in their force of adversity, carved from the very bedrock of the universe. Now this is something I really want to pick up with you, CP, in a minute. Dwarves endured an age of servitude to giants before winning their freedom. Their mighty mountain and fortress cities testified to the power of ancient empires, even though they lived in human cities and are counted among the staunchest defenders against the darkness that threatens to engulf the entire world. They're tough, gruff, and strong as bedrock. They like to bring glory to their ancestors and serve at their god's side, and they're able to take as much punishment as they can dish out. And yeah, they like quite often paladins, clerics, and fighters. A few of you who have read the Player's Handbook quite a few times will notice that I'm using that to help me. so Crush Points, talk to her about being carved from the very bedrock of the universe, because that's something that definitely intrigues me.
This can be taken either literally or metaphorically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting. You can very much and easily run a setting where dwarves are literally stone, where they're people made of stone. They return to the stone, right, when they die. And some people take that in a very, very literal way, like, oh yeah, bards are literally made out of the earth, you know. And then dwarves are literally made out of the earth.
Bards on the brain.
Bards on the mind. Yeah, dwarves are literally made out of the earth, and they just kind of rise up, and they live there, they eat there, they work there, and then their entire culture is built around being that incredibly hardened state. You know, it's really, really cool. And you can use that in in a very literal way. You can use it in a metaphorical way. I've always really liked dwarves. Dwarves are kind of my I've never played one, which is sort of a guilty admission of mine, but I've always really enjoyed them. You know, I think they're just really cool as a culture. They are very much about the embodiment of fortitude. They stick around, they work hard, and they just are. And I like that a lot. You know, when you break down all the different races of D&D, all the different races of Forgotten Realms, they're very much embodiments of various traits that you might find in an abstraction of the ability scores, but you might find in the abstraction of human beings. And dwarves are very much the resilience of traits. You know, I really, really like that. But in that, right, they're just a people that lives and sticks around in the worst places, and I like that a lot. I just really like them.
Awesome scenes on that. Yeah, you've got to love dwarves. They're kind of just, like I said, long-sticking, grudge-keeping, mining hard bastards. They're like they're kind of the standard fantasy dwarf. They do seem to have that kind of like standard fantasy vibe to them. But like you said, you could take them all the way to being practically golems, which is kind of cool.
Right, and a lot of people play dwarves in sort of a silly way, and like a caricature of themselves, and that can be said about literally any race, right? A caricature of dwarves is like people that just want to be drunk all the time and stuff like that, you know? As much as that is fun and that is interesting, I think there's a lot to be missed about. They're not just the people that drinks a lot, you know? They're just sturdy, and I enjoy that about them.
I mean, how do you feel about the dwarves, Brett? I know you're going to be playing a dwarf in the Warhammer Fantasy Battle Savage Lands we're doing. Mm-hmm. Are you tempted to bring a dwarf into Dungeons and Dragons as well, or how are you feeling about these little stunty bastards?
So far I like them.
Awesome scenes. I'm going to take that as an indication to move on. Okay. So moving on. We have the Eldarin, the Eladrin. I always say Eldarin. I'm now reading it. Yeah, it is Eladrin. So the Eladrin, the graceful warriors and wizards of the eldritch twilight of the Feywild. They are the creatures of magic with strong ties to nature. Eldarin live in the cities in the twilight realm of Feywild. The cities lie close enough to the world that they sometimes cross over, appearing briefly in mountains or valleys, deep forest glades, before fading back into the Feywild. They are otherworldly and mysterious. To be graceful and intelligent, they teleport about the battlefield, cloaked in the magic of the Feywild, and they are members of a race that favours wizards, rogues, and warlords. They are the fairy folk, and appropriately, I put on my fairy voice for them. They are essentially
too much.
Essentially, the Suki Stackhouses of the Dungeons and Dragons world, as far as I understand it. I know they're new to the 4th edition. How are you feeling about the Eladrin CP?
This is one of the additions to 4th edition that I really didn't enjoy. Right, Eladrin are what they are. You know, they're sort of like they sort of redefined what it means to be a wood elf and what it means to be a high elf with Eladrin, right? So Eladrin would be the high elves, and elves would be the wood elves, which so they sort of constituted all elves as sort of the rangery ones. You know, they live in the forest and they shoot arrows, and they live in a very like wooden area, and they're very cultural, and they're very much to themselves, and they're sort of off to the side. And then Eladrin are like these floaty fairies that fly in and then tell everyone that they're garbage and then like use magic. This did not need to exist, you know, and again, that's a lot of my problems come with 4th edition come from this didn't need to exist. Eladrin are interesting because face step is a really awesome mechanic. I really like face step. I really like the idea of old elves. But why do they have to be something different? Why couldn't they just be old elves? You know, why couldn't elves couldn't just have face step? Why couldn't elves just have Eladrin roots or be bound to the celestial beings that they used to be? And in that, Eladrin are cool. They're a cool playable race. I've seen people do great things with them, but I just don't like how they're played, and I don't like why they exist. You know, again, this is the warlord bard thing, right? You take an abstraction of something that is very, very interesting, and you turn it into something that's just sort of silly and not necessary. And that's very much what happened with 4th edition. But I like elves. I like elves a lot. They are my abstraction of what it is to be wise and dexterous and sort of snooty. And I think that all those things come with being 400 years old. You know, like if you're an elf and you've been around for a while, of course you've seen things. These humans that live and die, they don't really know anything at all. And I like that sort of dichotomy between what it is to be a human and what it is to be an elf. And then you have these elves and these other elves, and other elves are better than regular elves. And like, come on, why? Why did that need to be? You know, so it's very much it is what it is. I think Eladrin are cool. I've seen people play cool Eladrins, but I particularly personally don't understand why they're necessary.
Well, that's fair enough. I'm loving getting this vitriol out of you, CP. We're going to have some fun with Lorekeepers. We're going to make you angry. I think it's good. I love it.
My normal benign, regular banal opinion isn't working here. I get really upset.
Exactly. No, it's good. Kind of like my first experience of Eldar. When we first got our group together, we're all complete noobs, and it included a few partners who weren't really interested but wanted to be in. And we have a friend called Claire, and she is an Eldar in real life anyway. Like she's just very petite and fey, and it was the most appropriate character for her. So we played through an intro encounter, and I was like, oh, I've played one encounter now. I'm a fighter. I'll protect everyone. And then that was the first character I ever had that died. And the Eldarin just face stepped about the board, just raping and pillaging everything. It's kind of crazy. So, yeah.
I currently have in the game that I'm playing right now, the game that I'm running right now, I have an Eladrin player, and she's amazing. She does great things with her Eladrins. She's super, super racist towards everything that's not an Eladrin, and she has face step. She can do it. She's mechanically worked it out so she can do it 7 times, and it's crazy. She's super cool, and that in that it sort of brings me around to Eladrin in that you can be this really cool archetype of this character that has been around for too long and now is angry and bitter for the world. But again, you could have just done that with an elf. And I'm not blaming the players that play Eladrin. I'm not telling people not to play Eladrin. I'm sort of just shaking my head at wizards for doing this. And why just not make elves more encapsulating? But that's another story.
So you heard it here first. CP's advice: be an Eladrin bard or a warlord.
Be an Eladrin bard. Be whatever it is that you want to be, to have the most enjoyable game you can have, and that's what I'll always say that.
Awesome scenes. So within your diatribe there, we did touch on the standard elves, but I'll go into them a little bit more. So they're quick, wary archers, freely roam the wilds and forests. Wild and free, elves guard the forest lands using stealth and deadly arrows of the trees. They build their homes in close harmony with the forest, so perfectly joined that the travellers often fail and notice that they've even encountered an elven community until it's too late. Quick, quiet and wild. They lead their companions through the deep woods and pepper their enemies with arrows, and there are lots of rogues and clerics and rangers. So I see what you mean. They're with the elves, they are just saying they're wood elves, aren't they? Really? So I can see where your frustration comes in. So moving on from those, we have the Drow. Now, interesting thing about the Drow is, just going from the player's handbook today, I wasn't going to include these until Corruption Points said you all would not be very happy. So, Corruption Points, please talk to me about the Drow.
If we're talking Forgotten Realms, we gotta talk Drow. One of the Drow should be pale, right? They live under the ground, so there's no sun. They should be pale. But that's not. I'm not gonna get into that. This art is actually pretty cool.
I'm sorry, that's the wrong picture.
No, you're fine. I really like the picture. So Drow, and this picture sort of equates Drow to Dark Eldar. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where they're these Warhammer 40k Dark Eldar. Let me throw that out there. Where they're these torturers, and they're sort of all about pain, and they very much enjoy the sort of darker side of things. And I will not dispute that Drow are evil, right? You cannot be, and I've seen tons of people do this, don't try to be the only good Drow in the universe. Please don't. The Drow are innately evil. They're born to be evil. They're bred to be evil. You know, they're not good folks. They love chaos. They love evilness. But that does not particularly mean they have to be boring. And the idea behind that is that if Dark Eldar are all about pain and sort of the excessive things, then Drow are all about chaos. But it doesn't particularly mean stupid chaos. It means that they like sowing seeds of discontent, you know? The Drow are this race of people that lives underground, and all they really do is sort of mess with people upstairs. They're like the worst neighbors you've ever had below you, and they're just constantly banging the floor, you know? I really like Drow. Drizzt Do'Urden is one of the most famous people of Forgotten Realms because he's written by R.A. Salvatore, and all of the books are about him. And he's a great guy. He's a great rogue. He's a great rogue archetype. I guess he would also be a fighter. And he is a Drow, and he's the one good Drow in the universe. Okay. That being said, you are not Drizzt. You're not Gandalf. You're not Legolas, right? There's 5 mages in the world. They're not you. Let's not try to be the only good Drow in the universe. Drow are just supposed to be evil. They're supposed to sow chaos, but they don't do it in a stupid way. They do it in a very smart and calculated way. And like, I'm gonna plant this seed here because in 50 years there's gonna be an elf that walks by and he's gonna try and worship this tree, and they're gonna throw a coconut on him. It's gonna be all his planned, right? That's like that kind of like really long form corruption, really long form chaos. That's what Drow are all about. You know, it's. And a lot of people like to equate them to just being like evil or spiky or huge boobed, you know. And it's very much a matter of they are the antithesis of what elves are, which are people that worship the earth, people that really like the way things are, people that really like their culture and their religion. Drow hate the earth and they want to corrupt it. They just want to see it be corrupt. And that's all they want, you know. It's not really a matter of like, let's accomplish this thing. They just want to mess with the world to put it in a different image because chaos is fun.
Okay, so kind of like more sentient Falmer from like the Skyrim sort of thing. Cause
Actually, that. Yes. Without getting into Skyrim, well, yeah.
I don't want to offend anyone by creating things over, but I just to understand because they're also very pale. So yeah, so awesome things. Yes, exactly as wunderbar. I'm not pronouncing that correctly. They are pale, which is wonderful.
You did that right.
Oh, did I? Good.
Yep.
Awesome scenes. I'm quite happy with that. Right, so on to the halves and halves.
The
halves and halves.
Halves and half-halves.
This is where you kind of like, it could be seen interesting racially, but so half elves. They are born heroes and leaders who combine the best features of human elves, descended from human elves, half elves, surprisingly enough. They are a vital race in which the best features of elves and humanity appear. Outgoing, enthusiastic leadership qualities. They're charismatic heroes at home in 2 different cultures. They are a member of a race who favours the warlord, paladin, and warlock classes. They're far more than just a combination of just the 2 races. They kind of the combination of the human and elf blood produces a unique race with qualities even of its own. They share some of the natural grace and athleticism, keen perceptions of elves, also with the passions and the hardiness, kind of fightiness of humans. They like to be around people and get off doing things. They're kind of like, I don't know, they're kind of like half elf, half people in many ways. They're like slightly thinner, slightly more fey people. Essentially, how do you feel about the old half elves?
I really like half elves, and this is gonna sound silly. I really like that they don't belong. Half elves are it's a tough life when you really have to think about that. You're this abomination to elves, and you're this strange human. So you're sort of like straddling the line between where you should be and where you should be doing. It's very hard to be a half elf in elf culture. It's very hard to be a half elf in human culture because in both areas, no one really likes you. You're sort of seen as this like offcast, this disgusting thing. Like how could your mother / father possibly be a human? That's terrible. Go away from me, you know. And I really like the idea that half elves lead a bad, like not a bad life, lead a tough life, you know, and that creates who they are. You know, they have the resilience of humans with the wisdom of elves, and they sort of they combine those 2 aspects into this one being that isn't appreciated or understood by anyone around them. And I like that they're the outcasts of D&D. You know, halflings are sort of like the funny, like people look at them and they understand them. They are what they are. They're their own race of people. Half elves are half of an elf and half of a human, and that's all they'll ever be until they decide what they want to be, one more than the other. And I really like that. I really like that aspect. I think there's great stories to be told there, you know. And I know you're about to get to them, but half-orcs as well is the same idea.
So and I know I'm going to be that guy that makes everything something else. So kind of the whole Spock thing for the life of half elf.
No, that's a perfect example. Yeah, he's a Vulcan with human emotions, and like when he's sort of like walking around just kind of talking to Kirk, he's like, "Hey, Kirk, what's up?" And to Vulcans, he's like, "Yo, Kirk, I'm your boy," right? And that's weird to Vulcans, but it's just Spock being Spock. and like it's cool that he kind of fits between those two universes of really interesting, really reserved, really intelligent, and then like humans.
Yeah, awesome scenes. People are asking about the aging process of elves. I'm just desperately trying to look at it quickly. I think they stay young in old age, but they still get old.
Yeah, they grow old,
that's the vibe.
But they look young.
Yeah. Awesome scenes. So yeah, so half-orcs, because again, these are something that doesn't appear in the player's handbook as a straight up character. Would you be able to talk us a little walk around the, because that's going to be a difficult life. A half-orc.
Yes, absolutely. How did this happen? You gotta look at. You gotta look at a half-orc and be like, where did this come from? Like, what are you?
I can only imagine just like the stigma, like of your mother was an orc. Oh my god, get away from me.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. Like your mother or father was an orc, and now you're this thing that nobody wants around, nobody trusts. You look much more like an orc than you look like a human. And like it just like blatantly look like an orc, and in that, like the best thing that you can do is like speak better and worry about your hygiene, and like that's most of the. I once owned a book that said all half-orcs are barbarians, and you can play any race that you would like as long as you cross-class barbarian. And in that, I was thinking like, are half-orcs just is because they have to be barbarians because they're orcs, because all orcs are barbarians at the root. And then the half side of them allows them to be other classes, and I really like that extrapolation that I made for myself because I'm an idiot. And it's very much not a lot of people like to think about what half orcs are. Like how did an orc and a human woman get together? I hope it didn't happen by accident. But if you're trying to play like a good, I guess the best thing would be chaotic neutral. If you're trying to play a chaotic neutral half-orc or a neutral half-orc, you have to wonder where you came from and why. At what point did what orc pillage a village filled with humans? And then are you trying to do good in the world, or are you just trying to be more like your orc side of things? I like them. I like the halves. I like the halves a lot because they don't fit, and they have to think about where they fit.
Because I know we're going to get onto tieflings a bit in a little bit, but like they kind of also have that same kind of like, because they're kind of half people as well to a certain extent.
Yeah, they're half demons.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. Sad times, because you're going to be reminded. Like, I know we're using all sorts of different euphemisms in chat and here now, saying the word accident. Like it's probably horrific rape, and we shouldn't kind of make that a light thing, because it's not a light thing. But that's a hard thing to live with for your entire life. Like that's scary. And again, being the guy to equate it to everything again, I'll choose Oblivion this time. We had the old human vampire champion orc.
I remember that guy.
That guy was really cool.
So half-orcs do appear all over the place. So next we have halflings, who here we are, the wonderful things that they are. Quick and resourceful wanderers, small in stature but great in courage. A small race known for their resourcefulness, quick wits and steady nerves. They are nomadic folk who roam the waterways and marshlands. No people travel farther or see more of what happens in the world of halflings. They're plucky heroes who are all too easy to underestimate. They're likeable, warm and friendly. They're a member of a race that favours the rogue, the ranger and the warlock classes. And they're between 3'10" and 4'2", so they are quite small chaps. But they're like just plucky, fun adventurers, and there's something awesome about that. Like they're kind of like, I don't know, in many ways they are the sort of stereotypical hobbity type thing, but they are the Frodo or the Bilbo. Like, do you mean they are they're
hobbits? Yeah.
Yeah. But they're the adventurous hobbits. They're the ones that are going places, doing things. They've got some took, a little bit of took in them, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely some took in them. Halflings are very much inspired by the Hobbit, and that's very obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
The weird and then cool. I'm gonna keep doing this. Distinction of what happens to halflings is that they don't have a city. You know, they don't have a shire really in Dungeons and Dragons. They don't really have a shire in Forgotten Realms, unless you go into that one town, which is strange, and I don't remember the name of Lorien. Lorien is sort of like the Shire from Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Luiren. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But for the most part, halflings just sort of attach to dwarf and human civilizations, dwarf and human cities. And in that, right, much like every half-orc is a barbarian, every halfling is a rogue. Because halflings much live by taking what they need to live where they need to live. And I like that idea of them. Again, I like the fact that whereas half-elves are sort of trying to find their way in society, sort of trying to find where they fit in, halflings are stealing where they fit in. And I really like that idea. You know, they don't care about, like, working on it, they just take it. And they take it and they stick it in their fuzzy pockets and they run away. And it's a really cool. It's a really cool idea. You know what I mean? Like, if you have to do what you have to do, what will you take to do it? And they like being rogues. Halflings are naturally tricky. They're naturally cunning. They will take almost everything that you have and just walk off with it, because that's what halflings do. The first ever rogue was Bilbo. And in that, you have to think that they don't worry about fitting in culturally. They just take what they need and move on.
Oh, yeah, and I kind of like it because they're unassuming with their roguishness, which is kind of cool. They will do anything they need, but they're kind of quiet and fairly underplayed. They're muted in some ways. Like they're. Would you say? Would you agree?
Yeah, it's very much an idea of being too cute to criticize, you know. And that sounds kind of silly, but they look like kids, and not just because they're short, because they naturally look like kids, and in that they're sort of hard to put your hands on, I guess.
Really? It's illegal to lay hands on a halfling.
Oh, violently.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought you were trying to seduce a halfling. What's the age of consent for a halfling?
Moving on to humans. Humans are what we're talking about next, right? We're talking about humans.
We can talk about. Well, no one really knows much about humans. I mean, we're not coming from a perspective that we can kind of understand humans from. But yeah, we're all humans. We know what humans. The humans are pretty standard. The ambitious, driven, pragmatic race of heroes. Yay for us! Also a race of villains. Boo for us. Of all the civilized races, humans are the most adaptable and diverse. Human sentiments can be found almost everywhere. Human morals, customs, and interests vary greatly as they do in the real world. We're disastrous, resourceful heroes with enough determination to face any challenge. We're the most versatile and flexibility of every race, and we can excel in any class. Like that, we're the everyman of every men of every race in many ways. Like you can just do what you want. Good old humans, aren't we? Aren't we sturdy and adaptable?
I love humans. All right, and this is a problem of mine. Whenever there is if I'm playing a fantasy setting, if I'm playing a sci-fi setting, if there's an option to be a human, I'm going to be a human, because I love the idea that in a world filled with like centaur people and minotaurs and dragons flying around, I'm still just a dude with a sword. I think that's awesome, right? I love how basic they are. I love how they don't have anything really great. You know, go ahead.
I totally agree with that sentiment, especially more in the sci-fi settings where, you know, you have mankind, you know, your usual everyday guy is faced with, you know, the nastiest, worst possible shit, and it's just him on his own with his wits and whatever he's got in his pocket. Whereas, you know, other races are all jacked up, strong, and busting out magic left and right, whereas humans are just like, yeah, we make do with our hands.
It's very much an idea that Mass Effect, I think, said it best. That humans are this ambitious race of people, and they're so much more sped because they have some 70 years really before they die. So they have to accomplish everything that they want to accomplish in those 70 years. And there's an ambitiousness to humans that they understand that they are not the best. Therefore, they have to go out and be the best. And it's finding the way that you are. The best thing that humans have ever gotten is an extra feet. You know, mechanically. You get 1 more feat at level 1, and then you sort of have some saving throws when you're in 4th edition. But for the most part, humans are just what they are, and it's really, really cool to have that immediacy, have that weakness in this world filled with like terrors and dangers, and you're just a dude. I love that aspect. I love being just a dude.
That's kind of why I went from a human for my first character. I just thought I wanted lawful good fighter. Give me a big axe and some armor, and I'm just gonna, like I am the most horrific cliche of huzzaring and good old knighting. But that's kind of what I wanted from Dungeons and Dragons. I want a bit of that grand fantasy. Like that, and what better to be than to be a human? Like you're taking it even further with some of your games. What's that game you're playing where you're actually you, literally?
Oh yeah. It's played way worse than I thought it would be. Let me tell you. But yeah, that was just me being me. It was just really cool.
What is the game? What is the game called?
World of Darkness.
Ah, awesome scenes. I'm sure we can talk about that in another episode or something. So,
oh yeah,
awesome scenes. So moving on to we got Tieflings. Now I've just made a new Tiefling character today because there's something I just like. There's something wonderful about Tieflings in a way. They're heirs of a shattered empire who live in darkness and do not fear. They're heirs of a nation of infernal bloodline. They have no realms of their own anymore, but they used to have huge empires. They live within human cities and kingdoms, but they're always kind of marginalised or on the outside. They're descended from humans who ages ago bargained with the dark powers, and after their empires subjugated half the world. But the empires were cast into ruin, and Tieflings were left to make their own way in the world. That often fears and resents them. They're heroes. They can be heroes or evil, but if they are heroes, they're heroes with the dark side that they want to overcome. They're good at tricking, intimidating, and persuading other people, and they're like they favour the warlord, warlock, and rogue classes. Like they're people with horns and red or pink or black or purple skin. Like, what more could you ask for? Like, I kind of like it. You can either be evil or bad.
See, I'm probably gonna catch some flack for this, right? I really like Tieflings. I really like the Warlock class, and I know that the Warlock class is one of the biggest complaints that people have about 4th edition. Because why would you need more arcane classes when you have like 17 from 3.5? But I like the idea that Tieflings are warlocks. I like that they live sort of in the darkness. You know, they're not afraid to be what they are, and they don't have to hide underground like the Drow, right? They can be like demon horny tail people, and they just got this ridiculous like eldritch power, and they can be warlords. So they're just like this red-skinned devil sitting on the battlefield staring you down. I like Tieflings because they understand that they should be feared. And they use it. They use it like armor. You know, they wear it. They're like, look at me, I have horns on my head. Deal with it. I really, really, really enjoy that. You know, and it's a matter of being what you are and just kind of making the world get used to it rather than hiding or trying to find your way. They just are, and they're in it. I love it.
So am I being that kind of that guy making the another one good Drow in the universe? Because like my guy is he was orphaned, brought up by a human in the city, lived on the outskirts, beaten up, and kind of people ostracized him, and now he kind of wants to live by some kind of human laws and things, and he's kind of helping out his little halfling friend, and who like he's like a bad man trying to be good and overcome his, and it's cliched and horrible, but yeah. So yeah, as Wunderbar said, he is kind of Hellboy. I didn't think of that. I'm gonna call him Ron. But yeah, I just kind of yeah, they are exactly as someone else mentioned. They are very 90s anti-hero. But
yeah, they got colorful lanyards, and they got foil variants, and they need a gun to live. They're very much the spawn of Dungeons and Dragons, you know. Yeah, that's fine. I love the 90s, and I'll unabashedly say this. I enjoy how awful the 90s was, and I enjoy Tieflings, I guess, for the same reason.
Exactly. I'm loving this. You're both our human shield and sage, because you're going against some of the grains, which is good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, a little bit.
So to finish up our kind of talking about race and things, I know they're obviously not a playable race. They are the enemy creatures, but I thought I'd throw up a bit of goblins here because everyone likes goblins. Good old goblins. So you got a black blade and a hexer and a skull crusher? Is that? I'm kind of
Crusher, I believe.
yeah. Awesome scenes. Are they not a playable race? Oh well, okay. I'm guessing these things. Again, complaints
No,
to
they are a
corruption
playable
points.
race. They require some books and/or homebrewing.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so yeah, they come in many shapes and sizes. As well, you all know better than me. From the little goblin minions up to the bugbears and the hobgoblins, and they're kind of fun, just goblin-y goblins. I apologise for not knowing what I'm talking about, Rashiko. I'm sorry.
There is something we do have to touch on before we jump away from this. I don't really have anything to say about goblins. I guess I should preface with that. Goblins are just kind of goblins. They're cool, but they're what they are.
Yeah.
But we do and should touch on gnomes.
Gnomes. Okay, gnomes. I don't have a picture of a gnome, but please talk to us about gnomes.
I'll use the power of description to give them gnomes. Imagine you are that bald professor that you have in that first very early morning class. He kind of walks in with the squinty glasses, right? He's wearing this like tweed jacket, and he's got this awful fashion sense, and he's got that gold chain that sort of links from his pocket to somewhere else. If you don't understand what it's linked to, why would you need a gold chain? Now shrink them down to about a quarter of the size. That's a gnome.
Okay.
So gnomes are sort of the they're tricky wizardy dudes, right? They're very much the idea is that they're tough, but they're very, very smart, and they're very, very crafty. They're much about the cunningness of all the different races, right? Whereas halflings are all about cunning to steal. Gnomes are all about cunning to invent, to create. They're much into alchemy, and they enjoy learning things in that, right? Unless you're playing, they are very much an illusionist. I guess that's the best way to put it. They like putting on airs. They like having a good time, and they like making things a little bit stranger. And for me, that's what a gnome is. It's a creature that makes things just a little bit weird for the sake of making it weird.
So it's kind of like, because you're so small and you can actually affect the world so little, and have you decide to affect it magically, essentially.
I guess.
Find your place magically. Yeah. Okay, cool. Also, I forgot, I was trying to relate everything to everything else. So back to halflings really quickly. They're like the little blue guys from Golden Axe, nicking all your swag.
Yeah, totally. The little blue things you hit a lot, and they drop little coins.
Keep kicking them. I really wanted to work that whole scene into a campaign at some point. I definitely mind of doing that. So we've talked about the gnomies. We've talked about a lot of the other races. Just before I move on, is there any other races you quickly want to go into? I know there are more and more and more and more and more.
There are like thousands, right? And it depends on the setting and how many books you own. But really, we nailed the core one, so I'm fine with that.
Okay, awesome scenes, because we have already hit an hour, and we're about to get to the last segment.
Did you still want to talk about gods? Or did you want to hold it?
Well, we could hold it actually. Yeah, we've done a good hour.
Because I have like, I'll show the chat. I have several pages of notes on gods here that I decided to freak out and do for the past 4 to 8 hours. So if you want to hold it, we can just have an entire show on Forgotten Realms gods and what's happened. We can talk about the time of troubles. Let's hold it. Actually, the more I talk about this,
I was going to leave it to you, because if you're a man that's in 4 to 8 hours of prep just before this show, I think you should have the final say on that. And be like, yeah, do all this work. Yeah, we're not going to have you back on the show now, CP. So that was all wasted.
Yeah, if we hold it too, I can be more prepared next time.
Awesome scenes. So since next time, gods, I will be ignorant and just bring you the 4th edition, the 4th edition gods. Corruption points will bring you every god that has ever been even considered by any of the Dungeons and Dragons creators. This is just every week on week, give more and more and more work to CP until he cracks. That's kind of my plan with this show, I think, in some ways.
I think you're just gonna find me surrounded by pictures of D&D, just one of the very beautiful mind room, with string everywhere. There's a connection. We should go sit down.
So yeah, well, this has been the first episode of Lorekeepers. Thank you ever so much for for joining us. Like I said, Brett and I are going to get more and more involved and build our knowledge up more and more as we go along. So, again, apologies to people. Any kobold lovers out there, all the gnomies, everyone that hates tieflings, and everyone else I messed out and mispronounced, I would like to apologise for. But we're learning and we're excited, and we're bringing you excitement and anger from all of us, which is always good. We are Dice Troop is always everything we do is for free. We do it for fun. We do it for you guys. You can donate on the Tumblr page, diceroot.tumblr. I know some of you have, some of you here have, and you're wonderful, beautiful people, and we love you eternally for that. We've got lots of shows going on at the moment. We got what day is it today? It's Thursday. So Saturday we've got the Hammer, and then Monday Table Talks with you.
Table Talk. Yeah.
And Tuesday possibly going to be a new Planeswalkers Mosh Pit. We shall see what happens with that. And then Thursday again, back to Lorekeepers. But next week will be our first Magic the Gathering episode. It's going to kind of the way Lorekeepers is working is there's going to be one show every week. We're still going to be bringing you the Fluff Talk equivalent, but that will be in Lorekeepers. So 140k a month, one RPG a month, one card game, and one either fantasy or other. So please let us know what you want us to talk about of anything. So if you want to talk about Infinity, Mech Warrior, any Legion, any chapter from Warhammer, or just anything from anything, let us know, and we will do what we can.
If you want to shower with some praise or ask any questions about various things about various realms, I've done a lot of research lately. You can go to crusherpoints.tumblr.com. That is my home site, and I will be glad to talk with you. If you have any complaints or suggestions, or if you just didn't like my face, you can go to foxhammer.tumblr.com. I'm sure that you surely enjoy hearing those. And I don't think he gets enough per day. You can send 2 to 3. Just send the same message again and again. I'm sure he enjoys it.
Yeah, please do make sure all complaints go through foxhammer.tumblr. Oh man.
And
and Fox has literally just arrived at that moment.
What? No, we're not spamming Fox. Who said that? What?
No.
Not, what? Who?
Nah.
no idea what's going on. No idea what you're talking about.
My advice to you, Fox, don't watch this on YouTube. So we'll bring this episode to a close. I might bring it back up a bit if you guys fancy carrying on chatting. How do you guys feel? Should we come back for a bit?
Let's hang out.
Awesome scene. So thank you so much for joining us this first time and bearing with us. Tatty bye.